Okay, this one right here is about hatching Muscovy duck eggs, and you're probably not going to be interested in it at all unless you're trying to hatch Muscovy duck eggs. And I don't have any proof on this either. This is my own theory here. I decided that I wanted to hatch these stinking eggs, and I went on the internet and read about it. And these are known to be one of the hardest stinking things to hatch. Not particularly a duck egg, but a Muscovy duck egg. So I went around the internet and I started reading about it, trying to figure out how to do it. And if you read on the internet and try and find information, there's very, very little information on it at all. There's been some scientific studies done by universities as to why possibly it's so hard for this to hatch. One thing that I noticed that the papers would say is that the bigger eggs had a lower hatch rate. So I just tried to gather information here and see if I could figure this out myself. So typically how you try and hatch one of these eggs, they consider that this is waterfowl. So okay, since it's waterfowl, it probably has to have a higher humidity. So typically how you do it is you have a 75% or higher humidity. You have low air circulation in order to maintain the humidity. You use an egg turner, which sets the egg up like this and turns it 60 degrees either way 3 to 4 times a day, depending on what type of egg turner you have. Also realize the egg turner makes heat. It has a little motor on it. So, and another thing they do is they mist them. They try and simulate the duck coming back from the water and sitting on the egg. The duck's obviously going to be wet. No matter what they did, the hatch rate was real stinking low, and still is real stinking low. And I start panicking there, man. I go, shoot, I want to do these eggs here, and they're not going to hatch. Some people, matter of fact, I've read about, had 35 eggs and had 2 hatch. And then I kept reading through forums and message boards, and I saw someone that accidentally didn't put any water in their hatcher, and the thing dried out. Instead of being a 75% humidity like recommended, it went down to ambient humidity. So he had like a 14% humidity, and he was all worried that he killed all his eggs. But the hatch rate doubled. He had like a 60% hatch rate when he accidentally ran out of water. And I read about people who left their vent ports open on the top of the incubator. You have the choice of to increase your air circulation by taking plugs out of the top of the incubator. His were open. Most people leave them closed to raise the humidity up. Okay, and then I read some people say they increase their hatch rate by not using a turner. They lay the egg down and they only turn it once a day by hand. That's why this egg has an X and a 0 on it, because I'm going to turn it by hand. You have, you know, one day X is up and one day 0 is up. And so they hatch better like this. And they also hatch better if they miss the egg with a low humidity. If they missed the egg with 75% humidity, it didn't make any difference. Then I read a scientific paper that said that larger eggs had almost a 0% hatch rate inside of an incubator. Okay, on the other hand, you have the hen that has 60 to 80% hatch rate compared to an incubator. So I started stressing my little noodle here and adding up all the information that I've looked at over the internet for 3 weeks, and I came up with a theory. Now, I'm not saying that my theory's worth a shit, but I am going to give it a try. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to find out. These eggs, so here's my theory. These eggs are bigger than most typically hatched eggs. Not bigger than an ostrich egg, but bigger than chickens, bigger than quail, bigger than some things you hatch. They also take longer to hatch than most eggs. This takes 35 days. So the embryo is going to be in here in a more developed state in a longer period of time. Also, these Muscovy ducks are not as much waterfowl as most ducks are. They actually have claws on them. They can live in trees. They're somewhat similar to a goose in some of those respects. So the only thing that makes sense to me that lowering the humidity, increasing the air circulation, not using an egg turner, misting the eggs would do is it would control the internal temperature of the egg. Once the egg had developed far enough that it had a metabolic rate. Once this thing gets big enough and starts turning into a chick, it's going to make its own heat. So this egg itself is going to make its own heat, and it's going to be inside of the incubator that's 100 degrees. Now, if you imagine what effect humidity has on the internal temperature of the egg, imagine yourself sitting in a room that's just the right temperature, and then imagine that the humidity goes up to 80-90%. You would get hot yourself internally, even though the temperature didn't change. And the reason you'll get hot is because your body cannot remove heat from itself into the environment. So I think that's what happens to this egg. Everything made sense. Let's say that what I'm saying is that this egg overheats during the last week or last 2 weeks, and that's when the embryo deaths occur. When they were following these eggs, they were okay up until the last week or 2 weeks, and that's when the embryo deaths happened. And the ones that did hatch came out real weak. You know, they had to be helped out of the egg. So you take this egg right here and you take the humidity away from it, it lets itself cool. You increase the air circulation, it lets the inside of the egg cool. The egg turner has a motor in it that produces heat. Now, the incubator is able to control the heat, but having more heat inside the incubator lets the incubator stay. See, it doesn't stay exactly the same degrees. It goes up and it shuts off and it cools off, and it goes up and it shuts off and it cools off. It has a cycle. If you have more heat inside the incubator, the cycle will tend to move to the high side. So you won't go down that extra degree. You might only go down half a degree. And another one of my theories is as to why you turn it slower is I think that this, when this egg is in a nest, the hen sits on it, the hen is roughly 100 degrees on top. The bottom of the egg is cooler than the top of it because it's in straw. In a Muscovy, it might be in a damn tree. So you have it cooler down here. I think that the embryo has the ability to regulate its heat by getting rid of it on the cool side. I think that its vascular construction, it can constrict on the top and make itself come closer to the egg and actually cool itself off that way. Okay, these are my theories here. And you ask yourself, well, why isn't a chicken egg the same? Well, you know, most chicken eggs have been hatched in incubators here for 40 years. I mean, if a chicken egg won't hatch in an incubator, that species died off a long time ago. Mostly what you have in this country is chicken eggs being hatched in an incubator. Hens don't do it that much anymore. Some hens can't even do it. Anyway, that is my theory. So I am not going to put water in my incubator. I'm going to leave the ports open. I'm only going to turn this damn thing once a day. I'm going to mist it to allow it to cool, and I think that the shell right here can actually absorb whatever water it needs, because in nature the hen does come back wet and sit on the egg. It might have some effect. I don't think it can hurt it as long as the temperature is the same. So I'm risking a incubator full of eggs on this, and I'm not doing it nothing like anybody would recommend you do it. They think you're an idiot if you said incubate this at ambient humidity and don't use an egg turner. Only turn it once a day. People would think you're insane. And well, you know, I am insane anyway. But we're going to risk these right here, and I'm going to find out. In 35 days, when these things start hatching, I'm going to see, well, they might not, none of them might hatch. But this is my lame brain theory, and that's what I'm going to do.